What's up, guys? Welcome back to BTTS Podcast, where we give our unsolicited advice and opinions on all things relationship, marriage, love, healthcare, and all things in between. Thank you guys again for continuing to join in and go on this journey with us. We appreciate all the likes, comments, shares, all that good stuff. We're going to jump right on into it.
But women lack wisdom and awareness, and it's so disheartening that in 2025, I have to say this, that women lack womanly wisdom and they lack awareness. They are, I would say, they're intellectually intelligent when it comes to academics.
Yeah.
But when it comes to womanly wisdom and understanding how men function, they are bankrupt. And so we're dealing with this. And it's like, well, what do I do? I'm like, girl, how is it you walk around here? I'm a boss chick and I make $250,000 and I drive my Range Rover and all that. But you crying on my phone because of some man that you didn't have a standard with, treated you a particular way. Put that degree over here and be that smart girl over here. The same way you got it over here. What's the problem? It's because we've been taught to spend so much time being educated and being successful in the marketplace that the very thing that women crave the most, which is the love of a man, she has put no effort into that. He should just, well, because I'm pretty and I have a vagina and I can make a house a home and I can do tongue tricks and I can bear his children. So what does that mean? Every woman says that. We're in Atlanta. It's beautiful women everywhere. You got to have more than pretty. What value do you bring to a man's life? Most women don't know that. How do you become an asset to his life? In exchange for what you want from him, what does he get from you that he cannot get from everybody else? That's where we're missing it. So your friend, girl, if you're watching, he played you.
But
I hope you didn't give him none. I hope you didn't give him none.
You know,
he was in the hotel room, so I think we can joke at y'all on conclusions on it.
It got kind of crazy, but you made a point because he's speaking to a woman that has been deprived of something. I talk to so many women and they just like, yo, I can't even find a good conversation.
Because they're not good conversations.
Oh.
See, most women are boring. Now, ladies, y'all know I love y'all. Y'all know I'm for the men and for the women, so I'm gonna give this disclaimer. But most women are boring. Most women go to school, they'll go to work, they might be taking some classes to go to school. If they have kids, their life revolves around their kids, and they go to church. Would you want to be a part of that life?
Not that they're not doing anything outside of that.
That makes sense.
So how can you say I can't have a decent conversation when you're not even interesting? Why would somebody want to have a conversation?
Listen, tell him that too. Because
that goes for the men too.
That goes for the men too, because I've sat and had conversations with men. I'm like, so tell me, what do you do for fun? Oh, well, I just go to work. Oh, that means you're going to want me to sit around and watch TV with you all the time. And I like to get out and go and do things. So it's all about the man and the woman, men and women being interesting and being interesting and being interested in who you're sitting across from.
Right.
Most people don't even know how to ask questions to pull out information because they're not paying attention. Anytime I would go out, I would always study the man that I was with. I would find that little boy. So, because I knew if I could find his little boy, that's who I would be dealing with the most.
Wait, what is the little boy?
The hurt part of who he is. I had a quote, and the women, they lost their mind, and we always got to do the work. I said, if you heal the little boy within him, the man that you want will show up. I didn't mean do anything. I meant be exactly what that girl is being to you. Just being, and it causes you to heal because the presence, whether it's the presence of a man or a woman, becomes the healing. You start feeling like home with that individual. So I study people. Anybody that I'm with, I'm like, okay, let me see the most broken parts of who he is to see if I can handle that. Because we're all broken. Well, yeah, they need to do their healing work. Well, women need to do their healing work too. We don't know what a good man is until one comes in. Just like you guys don't know what the experience of a good woman if you've never experienced one. All of us have something. None of us has to be whole and healed to meet our person. Our person may be coming in as the physical being that orchestrates the healing. But everybody thinks everything has to be all I's dotted and all T's crossed, and it doesn't.
So she said a whole mouthful in this video. One of the things that I recognize even in myself, as women, we tend to dive into bettering ourselves, right? We dive head first into education, into advancing our careers, into all of these things. We become these high functioning depressed individuals. Let's just be honest. And again, I can own it for myself. I know in college I was depressed, I was devastated, my heart was broken, I was losing weight, hair was falling out, but baby, my grades were perfect. Okay, I went to every class, every assignment was done. I didn't miss a beat at that university. I was there. Okay, everything was crumbling around me, but my grades were where they needed to be, right? I think in diving headfirst into that, we lose the art of conversation. We lose the art of dating. We lose the art of getting to know someone. We lose the art of us because we become tunnel vision. This is what we see. I get it, because if I can focus on this, the world is burning down around me, but I got this one thing and I got a goal and I'm gonna get to it and I'm gonna win it and I'm gonna do what I need to do to get here, right? And then we get here, we get to that finish line. And now we're looking around us trying to figure out the rest of our lives, be that dating romantically, be that building regular friendships, be that raising our children, building our families, all the things that go with just leading a normal life, because we have this tunnel vision and we can't see anything else around it. And now we're looking for more and we don't know how to get it. I think one of the things that we have to do is be honest with ourselves and say, yes, I've tunnel vision here. Right. And I've become an expert in this, but I'm not even a jack of all trades in these things over here. And so just like I focused and I learned everything I needed to learn for this career, for this job, for this business, for whatever it is, I got to come over here and learn a little bit more over here. And then I got to step over here and learn some more over here. And we have to build ourselves up, rebuild our personalities so that it's not just centered around that one thing. And again, I speak from experience. My education became my life. My career became my life. I even find myself now sometimes in having conversations. A lot of my local friends are friends from work, and we tend to find ourselves, we chit chat, we talk about life, but we tend to find ourselves
talking about work,
right back talking about work. But we met up to talk about what was going on in life, but here we are, we back talking about work. So we have to figure out a way to decentralize that thing that is so central to us,
right,
which for most of us, it is our education or our jobs, our careers, our businesses is just the main focus. But we got to figure out a way to find those side things that are just as important. How to have a conversation with someone, how to build a relationship romantically, how to build a relationship platonically, how to build hobbies, how to build things around being a mom. I think we have less trouble building things around being a mom because I think, again, for women, our focus becomes our jobs, our careers, those businesses, and being a mom. And we forget who we are outside of those things.
And I think being a mom is actually part of who the woman is, though. I think that's why they can dive right into that, because this is something that is an achievement that they created.
It is. But we can't make it our entire personality.
No, yeah, that is correct. I'm just saying that's probably why they end up in those situations, while it ends up being just like the educational track and the business track, just like you were just explaining. I think that's why, because this is something I created. This is something I did. Yeah. This is an achievement in womanhood.
I can see that.
Being a good mother. But then I am a male. But I think another part of what you were saying is, while you're going through these tracks of education and you're building this business and you're becoming very skilled and very successful in whatever lane that you're in, I think also making sure when you want to step out into the dating realm and find this man, not always blaming the men for not being where you want them to be. And when I say that, I'm talking about, like she said in the video, like, these men can't even have a conversation. But are you interesting enough to have a conversation with? Because if all you're talking about and all you're focusing on is your business and academics, what outside of that are we talking about? Oh, you want to talk about academic conversations. You want to have these academic conversations with people who are not necessarily in your field or on the same track as you. So now that automatically deems the men as unmarriageable or not somebody you want to be in a relationship with, or just simply uninterested, or people who can't have conversations, you know. So in these scenarios, just making sure that you're not blaming the whole delegation of men for these types of scenarios, and realizing that, hey, you were on a track and there's nothing wrong with you being on that track. You know, just our interests are not aligning. So, and now don't get me wrong. Now, some people and some of these men absolutely cannot have conversations. I'm a man. I'm around men all the time, especially at work. And yeah, a lot of these people can't have conversations. Sometimes they'll come in and it's just like, what are you talking about? What are we talking about? It's so I can't really say that, you know, that this is something that's not happening. But again, as a woman, I'm sure you're around people who can't have conversations either.
Absolutely. It's a two-sided coin. It happens on both sides. I think the other thing to recognize is, just like women have a hyper focus on whatever it is they are focused on, that becomes their topic of conversation and it's difficult to steer away from it. Men do the same thing, right? So like, we both work in healthcare. Our conversations tend to stem a lot around things that are happening within healthcare. And that works for us because we both understand what the other one is talking about.
Right.
But if you think about someone who this person's background or career is focused in
engineering or something like that.
Sure, let's say engineering. And this other person's background is focused in something like education. These are two very separate things. And so what the engineer wants to talk about might not have anything to do with what the educator wants to talk about, and vice versa. And so now we've said that, hey, this person doesn't know how to have a conversation because who wants to talk about that? Well, it's not your interest. That's why you don't want to talk about it. We have to figure out a way to get ourselves more well-rounded. That's what we're missing. We have such streamlined focus that we're losing the well-roundedness. I joke about our oldest son having all of this useless trivia facts, but in actuality, he is actually setting himself up to be able to talk about anything. You could ask that child about just about anything, and he's going to have a date and a fact about it, and he's going to be able to have a conversation around it. And this is not something that we've taught him. This is just what he loves. I think taking a page out of that book would be beneficial to us, just learning things outside of your main focus of interest, basically, just so that you can develop more.
Right. And I mean, I think a lot of people, when we talk about things like this, they get offended. But just like with this situation, you can apply this same kind of thought pattern to anything that you're actually going for in life. Like if you're going for a job and there's certain skill sets that you need to have for that job, you need to kind of develop those skill sets, even if you're doing an on-job training. Yeah. You know, so like in this scenario, if you spent most of your time going to school and building your business, it would make sense that you would be kind of rusty when it comes to dating or being in a relationship if that's not something you've been focusing on or developing, especially seeing as how a lot of times we're not developing children to be in relationships. This is, and I say this all the time, you know, being in relationships younger, it's kind of something that you fall into. It's not something that somebody was like, hey, you know, when you get in a relationship, you need to make sure you do X, Y, and Z to make sure that relationship is successful. But again, with relationships, it's not a one size fits all. And a lot of people will point that out. But the other thing about that is, even though it's not a one size fits all, you realize certain things that you shouldn't be doing in the relationship, you know. But just going back to what she was saying earlier in the video, or what you were saying earlier in the video about the academics and women diving head first into academics, and then they become high functioning depressed people. We got to figure out how to turn this boat around, because looking at like the data and the percentages, you know, women in general across America are in situations where they're becoming more and more of the people that are being described antidepressants in society. especially in our community. We're not at the top, but that number is increasingly is rising. And it's not just women, it's the men too. But the thing about the men is it's hard to get a read on the percentages that the men are being prescribed these things, because a lot of times, men don't like to go to the doctor. But even though they don't like to go to the doctor, I don't think that antidepressants are always the solution to these things. So I don't want to go down that route and say that, even if men go to the doctor, they should be prescribed more and more antidepressants. But you see women often, they go to the doctor and they talk about being depressed, and doctors are just throwing these antidepressants at them. So you look at that, and then you see that there's the uptick of women that seemingly are depressed and they're on depressants. And then you look at that and you correlate it to what you were just saying about the women diving head first into academics. What would you say would be your thought process on that, seeing as how you were in that situation? Not that you were on antidepressants, but that you went into that situation. Do you think that something needs to change in that respect? Do you think that it's become a situation to where now it's more people going down that route, or what do you think?
I think we have to figure out a way to deal with what is causing the depression. Some of it is going to be chemical, right? Some of it is going to be hormonal, chemical imbalances and things like that. And other things are going to be the things that are just happening in our lives. Mm-hmm. For me, it was the things that were happening in our lives, and having the inability to deal with those things, right? Relationship, finances, housing, family, all of these things were coming at me all at once. And I was young. I was like 20, 21 years old. Mm-hmm. And just needing something to hold on to keep you afloat. I need one thing to happen, one thing to be successful, one thing to work for me. And so you just kind of grab hold of that one thing and you fight tooth and nail to make it work, while everything else is just like, look, it whatever is going to happen with it is going to happen with it, because I can't deal with those things right now. I don't know how to fix those things. I don't know how to handle them. I don't know how to address them. So I'm going to ignore them, and I'm going to latch on to this degree, and I'm gonna dive head first. I'm gonna be up until 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning studying so I can bust out this A on this test that's coming up. I'm gonna write this paper and it's gonna get me an A. I'm gonna do all the things that I need to do to secure this degree, while everything else around me is falling apart because I feel like there is nothing that I can do about it. So I think we have to figure out a way to actually deal with the things we feel like we can't do anything about. Not to say don't focus on your degree, not to say don't focus on that thing that you've latched onto to be successful. That's not what I'm saying at all. You still need those things, but you can't ignore the things on the peripheral that are falling down around you.
Right. And I wonder if this is the reason why a lot of times when women get these accomplishments, the accomplishments become their whole personality. Because if you're depressed and this is the only thing that seems good, or the only thing that you can latch onto, that you can use to succeed with, why wouldn't that become your personality?
And I just want to be clear before y'all come in the comments, not all successful women are depressed. That's not what we're saying at all. Not at all. There are some people out here who are incredibly successful, who have an overall successful life. I am specifically speaking to the men and women who have latched on to one particular thing, and that is what's keeping them afloat. Because if we're being honest with ourselves, and I had to be honest with myself, that is what got me through that point in time in my life, trying to get to that degree. If it was not for that, everything that was going on around me would have broken me. It would have left me laid out. I probably would have ended it all. I'm just being honest about it. If I did not have that one thing to focus on, that is unhealthy.
Extremely.
There's no other way to put that. It's unhealthy, because had that one thing fallen through, I would have collapsed. Everything would have fallen down around me, and it would have been over. I would not have been able to pick myself back up, because that was the one thing that was working. Everything else in my life was falling apart. So if that had fallen apart, I probably wouldn't be sitting here right now.
And that's kind of interesting to think about, because again, this is another one of those things where I'm wondering if that's why they hold on to, the accomplishments so hard. These type of women that you're talking about, and even the men that, I built my career on XYZ. I wonder if that's why they hold on to the accomplishments so hard, because if I relinquish how hard I'm holding on to this, or the grasp that I have on this, then that old feeling of whatever caused this comes back.
You're continuing the tunnel vision. You don't want to see those things around you. I was eventually able to let go, but for a long time, that degree, that licensure, it was my life. Like it really was. When things got better, I was able to let go of, and it was like, okay, whatever. I did it. I'm good. But at the time, because I didn't have anything else to hold on to, I could not let it go because my world would have crumbled.
That's truly sad, honestly, though, because you were able to come out of it. But for so many, they're not able to come out of it. And that's an interesting thing to think about, especially when you think about like how society is shaped up, the things that you see, all the issues that you see in relationships, whether it be romantic or platonic. There is so much that goes into all of this. And then when you start looking at depression rates and how that factors into this, at this point, I don't know what the end game is when it comes to relationships. Because if you have one side that's functioning based in depression, and then the other side is also functioning in depression, but either doesn't come to terms with that's what they're dealing with, or they don't understand or think that that's what they're dealing with, and they're just using it. I just feel sad today. I'm all right. You know what I'm saying? I got to pull my pants up, tie my shoes up, and keep it moving. That doesn't fare well for relationships. And you see, she said in the video something about, a person showing up in your life to be basically the catalyst, I'm paraphrasing, for that healing. I don't know how you even get to that point if everybody's functioning in this state of constant depression.
Were you functioning in a state of depression?
What do you mean?
When you and I got together, were you functioning in a state of depression?
Possibly. I don't remember that far back.
I will say for me, granted, you were in my life before serious depression took hold.
No, I wasn't functioning in depression. I was just thinking about it.
For me, you were my catalyst. You were what helped me. Not to say that I relied solely on you. And I'm sure y'all are going to ask, how did I come out of it? It wasn't some miraculous thing. I couldn't tell you the things that were falling apart in my life just slowly started to resolve themselves. It was not anything that I did. It wasn't. They just slowly started to resolve themselves. But for me, you were that catalyst. You weren't the fix.
Hold on, right? Pause. So if things started to slowly basically rectify themselves, how can you say that I was the catalyst?
You were the catalyst for
a mind change, maybe?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So you're saying that the mind change possibly aided in the things slowly coming back together, or not?
Not the things coming back together, because a lot of the things that were going on in my life were out of my control, right? I couldn't control that my brother was in prison. I couldn't control what life looked like for my younger brothers and my mom at home. I couldn't control just the feeling of, if I don't succeed, my family doesn't get better back at home, right? I couldn't control those things. My finances, I figured out a way to kind of help with that, right? I worked a lot. That helped with that. So I wasn't so broke. I stopped spending so much. Not that I had a lot to spend anyway, but I stopped spending frivolously so my rent could get paid. Those types of things. But a lot of the things that were really weighing me down were things that were out of my control. And so it wasn't something that I could fix. I just had to figure out a way to not allow it to consume me, right? Because at one point in time, my older brother went to prison at the same time that I went to college. We did prison and college together. he was so far away from me, I couldn't see him. And that was one of the things that was incredibly depressing to me, because he and I were very, very close. Whereas before, he was 30 minutes from home, he was moved further south. And for about 2 years, and I'm going to start crying, for about 2 years, we were not able to see him. All we got were letters. The phone calls were far and few between, because we couldn't afford them. We didn't have the money for him to call and check in on us and see how he was doing and things like that. And then when he ended up coming a little bit closer. It was still really far away. And so we were able to see him maybe once a year as best we could. And that was a hard thing. That was a hard thing to deal with, in addition to seeing my younger brothers struggle at home, because he and I were the ones, when we were home, we were the ones providing most of the income for the house. And so for me to be off at college and somewhat thriving and know that my older brother was in prison going through whatever it was he was going through, and my younger brothers were at home struggling, not knowing where their next meal was coming from. That was a very difficult thing to deal with. And again, it was something that was out of my control. But I knew that if I got my degree and I went on and I got a job, a decent job, I could help. Right. I couldn't bring my brother home. He had to do his time. There was nothing that I could do about that. But if I had the money, then that meant that I could have a car and we could go and see him at least. He could call us. I could send money home so my brothers could eat. Simple things like that, right? Again, not something that I had control over, but realizing that I did not have that control, but the degree could help, right? Getting to that degree, finishing my education, setting an example for my younger brothers to help them do better. Those were things that I could control. The other stuff, they just fell into place. There was no miracle recipe. It just worked out. Sorry, y'all. They got a little emotional. But just to kind of to circle back, right? Just learning how to deal with those peripheral things that we have tossed a blanket on to cover up, because it's hard to deal with. And you can see even now, 20 years later, it's still something that I haven't fully dealt with. Obviously, I don't know that it'll ever be something that doesn't bring some form of emotion out of me, because they were difficult times. It was the life that I lived. It made me who I am, 100%, absolutely. It made me appreciate the things that I have now a whole lot more. And we just have to figure out a way to have our success in our depressed state and also deal with the things that are causing that depression. And again, I don't have the answer. I don't even know that I have a suggestion.
Talking about it is one thing.
Yeah, I will say that is helpful, because holding it all in it makes it worse. Causes internal issues, ulcers, anxiety, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be, I encourage therapy, I do. But it doesn't always have to be therapy. I know for me, we've talked about therapy before. And we've done counseling before. I've done one individual session. We've done a couple of sessions, and I will admit that I probably need to do some individual sessions myself, and I'm working my way up to it. Mind your business. But for me, because of the things that I went through, because I hold them close to me, it's easier for me to have those conversations with him. And even with him, it's kind of hard. But being able to open up to him makes me more open to going to therapy. And eventually I'm going to get there.
I hope so. I really do. Because I've been trying to get you to go for quite some time. But back to what you were saying, you know, just finding those ways to actually deal with whatever your track is, and also deal with the things outside of it, but also not neglecting the other things, the other skills that you need to be building outside of your track. And that sounds like a whole lot going on, which it is, but life is life, unfortunately. And I don't believe the answer would be throwing yourself into academics or into your business, because in my mind, it kind of makes you less of a human, because you're not allowing yourself to feel the full range of the things you need to feel, or you're kind of cutting yourself off from certain things that you need to learn and grow and develop to be more of a social type of person, because you got to live on this earth with other people, you know. And if you cut yourself off from developing those things, or even realizing that you haven't developed those things, you're not getting the full human experience. And that's just my opinion on that. There's no facts to that. That's just what I believe. And yeah, I think it would be best to deal with those issues earlier in life, because, you know, it becomes more and more difficult to deal with when you get older. And like you said, it could cause health issues. And also it's difficult to deal with those things in a relationship where your partner or the person that you see as your partner doesn't really understand where you're coming from. So that makes it more and more important to be able to have those skills to actually choose or be in a relationship with somebody that would be able to understand where you're coming from, not because they've been through those instances, but somebody that can have that level of empathy and sympathy for you to actually help you in these types of scenarios. But yeah, I don't have anything else.
I've got nothing.
Got a couple of tears out of this thing, and some healing, some everything going on here. But yeah, I don't have anything else. You can like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell. We'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.
Night.
Oh.